Almost everyone gets something wrong about Medicare the first time around, and it's not because they're not smart. Not only is this system not user-friendly, but it's easy to trust the wrong information. People find themselves asking friends, listening to ads, Googling late at night, and by the time they make a decision, they've already made a mistake they didn't even know they were making. So today I want to walk you through the top Medicare enrollment mistakes I see, the ones that can cost you money, limit your options, or create problems later on. I'm Pam Turner, the creator and facilitator of the Medicare Facebook group known as Navigating Medicare the Easy Way. I hope you to put aside all those fears and worries about getting onto Medicare and enrolling in the right plan by streamlining the whole process for you. These days, the most common mistake I see at age 65 is not realizing that Medicare's cost to you is on a sliding scale. And it's not based on your current income, but income from 2 years ago. It's easy to assume that everyone pays the same for Medicare. Knowing how much Medicare is going to cost you can be an important factor in deciding whether to keep insurance through your job or transition all the way to Medicare. Keep in mind that when you retire and your income drops and you had received a letter stating that you're going to pay a higher premium or have been already paying a higher premium for a while, you can appeal this decision through the Department of Social Security. You'll be able to find the form online. Another one of the biggest mistakes I see is misunderstanding enrollment deadlines. And I know this sounds totally cliche, but there's nuances to this. I actually see this go two different ways. Some people have everyone screaming at them to sign up on Medicare to the extent that they give in and do it when they didn't even need to do it in their situation. For instance, because they have insurance at work and they plan to keep it. But the other end of the spectrum are those that are convinced that they don't need to sign up because they have health insurance in place that they already like and they want to keep. It's likely the wrong type of insurance to avoid a penalty and they don't even realize it. If you have a marketplace plan with a subsidy, you're not supposed to keep it when you turn 65. If you've retired and you have a retiree health plan, once you turn 65, that's not enough to prevent a future Medicare penalty for not getting Part B. If you have federal health insurance that you want to keep past age 65, it won't prevent a Part B penalty once you retire. Same thing with COBRA continuation insurance. In and of itself, it doesn't protect you from a penalty. The only way to safely hold off on enrolling in Part B of Medicare without a penalty is having health insurance through current employment. If you're not employed and have health insurance from the same employer you're currently with and you miss that initial window, Part B has a late enrollment penalty that increases your premium by 10% for every full year that you delayed coverage. This is a permanent penalty. This isn't a one-time fee. You pay it every month for the rest of your life once you enroll in Part B. The next mistake is misunderstanding what to do when you have employer coverage at the time that you become eligible for Medicare. So if you're still working at age 65, this applies to you. Now, if your employer has 20 or more employees, you can delay Part B without a penalty when you have health insurance at that job. But if the employer has fewer than 20 employees, Medicare must be the primary payer by law, which means you need to be enrolled. This is where a lot of confusion happens, and getting it wrong can have you responsible for 80% of your healthcare costs. Also, if you have an HSA, which stands for Health Savings Account through work, which is becoming more and more common these days, enrolling in Part A because you think you have to will conflict with the HSA because there's laws that don't allow you to get the tax break for pre-tax contributions at the same time you're enrolled in Medicare. Another big one is missing the Medigap open enrollment window. This is a 6-month window that starts when you turn 65 and are enrolled in Part B. During this time, you can enroll in a Medigap plan without answering health questions. The thing that trips people up is they assume they can choose a Medigap plan in the future at open enrollment. But open enrollment is only to add, drop, or switch a drug plan or an Advantage plan. It has nothing to do with Medigap plans. So after the initial window closes, you have to go through medical underwriting in most states, and you can be denied coverage. This is one of the most important timelines in all of Medicare, and so many people don't even know that it exists. This is why I highly recommend understanding the difference between Medigap and Medicare Advantage before making your plan choice. Now, this leads us to the next one. I see a lot of confusion between how people understand Medicare Advantage and Medigap plans. These are two very different paths. And what many people don't realize is that if you start with a Medicare Advantage plan, switching to a Medigap plan plan isn't always simple. In many cases, you'll have to go through medical underwriting, which means you have to answer health questions on the application and you can actually be denied. So the decision you make up front can affect your flexibility down the road. And then there's Part D. D is in drugs. This is your prescription drug coverage for drugs you buy at a pharmacy. Some people skip this altogether because they're not taking medications right now, but Medicare doesn't look at it that way. If you don't enroll when you're first eligible, you can face a permanent late enrollment penalty. Even if you don't need it today, you might consider just getting the cheapest drug plan that exists just to prevent a future penalty. And by the way, bundled in drug coverage on a zero cost advantage plan also fulfills the Part D requirement to prevent a penalty. The only reason to not enroll in Part D would be if you already have other coverage, such as through the VA, or if you plan to just never enroll in Part D. Never enrolling prevents the penalty from ever kicking in. Another mistake related to Part D, and this happens all the time, is that when you are holding off on Part B because you're still working, you are also holding off on Part D. But most people don't think about that. If you signed up on Part A only at age 65, Medicare considers you eligible for Part D also. This is when the penalty clock starts ticking and it's not even on your radar. Here's how this plays out. When you turn 65, you sign up on Part A because everyone is telling you you should. You don't have an HSA, so no conflict there. And it's free, so why not? But once you retire and leave your work plan and finally sign up for Part D, whether it's standalone or bundled with an Advantage plan, the Department of Medicare now wants proof you had credible drug coverage ever since the Part A started. Many people make the mistake of thinking that the proof that they sent in with their Part B enrollment application takes care of this, but it doesn't. They are completely different. The drug plan company will send you a letter asking for you to respond with the dates of coverage that you had credible drug coverage through your employer. If you ignore this request, you'll get a potential multi-year penalty that's not easy to reverse. And finally, assuming there's only one best plan is a common misconception that can cause you to go through some bumpy trial and error periods the first couple of years on Medicare. People often listen to advice as a shortcut without the proper investigation and end up on the wrong plan for them, because there really isn't a right or wrong plan, just a right or wrong plan for you. So how can you avoid all these mistakes? Work with me. Seriously, it's just that easy and it's free. Or find someone you trust that is willing to go through this process with you. Here's the bottom line. These mistakes don't happen because people don't care. They happen because Medicare is complicated and most of the information out there is either incomplete, out of order, or focused on selling something. That's why I do things differently. I make sure to understand every detail of your situation and share with you all the implications. We talk about how and when to sign up on Medicare. This matters especially when you're transitioning from work insurance when you're past age 65, how much you'll pay for Medicare. We talk about understanding the two plan types, how to know which is the best fit for you, not based on what all your neighbors are enrolled in. We talk about where the Part D prescription drug coverage fits in, whether you might need dental, vision, or hearing. If you're turning 65 in the next 3, 6, 12 months, now's the time to start learning. I offer one-on-one consultations where we walk through your situation and make sure you're not missing anything important, and my help is always completely free. If you want to make sure you get this right the first time, book on my calendar through the contact page over at decodingmedicare.com, and I'll show you what your next step should be. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video.